I think the victim imagery is a good example. We don't show this because it hurts women. Over the past 2 to 3 years, I've kind of realized maybe I don't believe those things. I'm kind of being told what to believe and what to say in the same way that I was being told what to believe and say when I worked at Planned Parenthood.
Today is the first of 2 episodes where I interview Abby Johnson, who is a former Planned Parenthood director who left the pro-abortion industry and now is a strong pro-life advocate. You don't want to miss this program, so stick around. Well, welcome everybody to the Mark Harrington Show, your radio activist and pro-life sage. That's because I've been doing this for decades and hopefully been sharing with you some wisdom from the pro-life front lines in America. And we're talking today with Abby Johnson, and Abby is well known within the pro-life movement and the pro-abortion movement, I would submit. And we've privileged to have her on the program. Abby spent 8 years as a clinic director at Planned Parenthood. And on September 26 of 2009, she was asked to assist in an ultrasound-guided abortion. Now think about that. And she watched in horror as a 13-week baby fought for and ultimately lost her life at the hands of the abortionist. And that changed her life forever. And she left Planned Parenthood and ever since has been a strong pro-life advocate. And Abby, we appreciate you being on the program and taking the time. I know you're busy with the launch of this new documentary, but thanks for coming on the show today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So, Abby, appreciate you being on. Let's talk about just after you left Planned Parenthood and getting involved in the pro-life work, you founded a ministry called And Then There Were None. What is that? What are you doing there?
Yeah, so we are basically a nationwide outreach to those who work inside of abortion centers. And our goal, our primary goal is to reach in, get these workers out and get them into a saving relationship with
Amen.
Christ. So, it's not it's not just about getting them out. I mean, that's fine, but it's about changing their life. I mean, that's what it's about. It's about helping them to know the Lord. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, you're just creating a revolving door for the abortion industry and workers." I'm like, "Okay, well, that's fine. We'll just get the next one that comes in to replace them, right?" And that's all we want to do is we just want to bring souls to the Lord. And we've been and what happens is ultimately is these workers, part of their healing a lot of times is coming forward and talking about the things that they've seen and the things that they've been a part of. And when that happens, we get them in contact with state, local, and federal officials. And so part of that has been actually closing down clinics that they once worked at. And that was kind of just a natural progression. So we have had 48 clinics close because of the work of these former workers and speaking out and working with officials. So that's been really beautiful, and was kind of unexpected, but that's just kind of a natural progression of them speaking out and taking accountability for what they've done.
My guest is Abby Johnson. And Abby, the website that I should send people to is at abbyj.com, or should I send them to a different one?
Yeah, they can go to abbyj.com to find out kind of about all the things that we do, but they can also go directly to abortionworker.com if they want to find out more about And Then There Were None. We have testimonies from former workers. And I mean, it's pretty incredible. I mean, people ask me all the time, like, what's it like to be on the phone with someone as they're walking out of the clinic for the last time? And I tell people it's like listening to a miracle happen, because that really is what it's like. These these women leave and they're convicted
Mhm.
by the Holy
Mhm.
Spirit. And sometimes they don't even realize that. Sometimes they don't even realize that it is the Holy Spirit convicting them. And so it's our job to point them to the Lord. And that's what we're
So let's
trying to
go
do.
back to, real quick, and this is just going backwards a little bit to the day you left. You see the baby being killed by abortion on an ultrasound, and that was the thing that turned you around. I often wonder, you worked for Planned Parenthood for quite a while, but yet had never seen one of, an ultrasound. It
Yeah.
seems odd to me, in a way, that you had never witnessed
Yeah.
abortion in that way.
Yeah. So, Mark, the abortion industry, they typically do not they use ultrasounds,
Mhm.
but they only use ultrasounds before the abortion starts. So, we used ultrasounds to date
Right.
pregnancies, to find out the gestational dating, to really find out how far along the woman was in her pregnancy to know how much to charge her for the abortion. But then the ultrasound was rolled away, and abortions are done generally in a blind manner. So the doctor has the suction tube or he has the instruments, and he's just blindly poking around in the woman's uterus until he thinks he has all of the parts removed from the woman's
Mhm.
body. And that's why we see such, a large percentage of uterine
Mhm.
perforations and hemorrhages, because the doctor literally does not see what he's doing while he is performing this surgery on this woman. And so we had a visiting physician come in from out of town, and he owned his own abortion clinic that was not, in consortium with Planned Parenthood. And so he said that at his own practice, he only used ultrasound guidance because lo and behold, that's safest for women to be able to see what he's doing to a woman while he's performing surgery on her. And so when I went to my boss asking about this, she did confirm, yes, this is safest for women, but she said it takes extra time. It takes about an extra 3 to 5 minutes of time to use an ultrasound during the abortion. And, if you're trying to do, I mean, like our clinic was trying to do, I don't know, anywhere from 30 to 50 abortions a day with one provider. If you're trying to do that, you cannot add 3 to 5 minutes of time per
Mhm.
abortion.
Yeah.
And, time is money in the abortion industry. So I really was called in to assist in this procedure. This type of procedure, to my knowledge, had never been done at our facility before, but he wanted to do it as a learning experience for all of us. And I did learn something that
I
day.
think it's interesting as well that visuals, if it will, whether it's an ultrasound or other pictures,
Mhm.
are the things that reach people or reached you,
Yes.
and made you
Mhm.
leave Planned Parenthood. I was wanting to get your
Mhm.
take on this because there's dispute, as you well know, within the pro-life movement as to where and when or if at all, to use visuals,
Mhm.
especially abortion victim photography, say outside an abortion center, or for like what we do, which is go to public colleges, high schools, and so
Mhm.
forth, and show them to stimulate debate because we believe that the pictures are necessary in order to kind of set the foundation for discussion. Where do you stand on this? Let's first talk about the abortion facility itself. I'm sure you had protesters when you were in Planned Parenthood. They showed up probably with the same type of similar victim signs that we use. What was your experience as it relates to the young women that went inside to have an abortion, and whether these were effective or not?
So, um, honestly, I didn't find them to be super effective in front of the clinics, um, in on like big signs. However, I will say that I personally use them in front of the clinics, um, when I'm talking to people one on one. So when I'm talking to people, and I will say I find them particularly useful with men for some reason. When I'm talking to the men that are going in, I almost always pull that out. with the men and talk to them. Um, and it's almost always a game changer
Mhm.
for the men that I'm talking to. Um, I think that what I found, and I know this is not always true, what I found was like the big signs were they seemed kind of scary to the women
Mm.
going in. And so they would kind of run away from them. But um, I always have victim imagery like in a
Mhm.
book that I have outside of the
Mhm.
clinics. And so when I'm talking to the women one
Mhm.
on one, I do
Mhm.
present that to the women when I'm talking to them. And it's pretty amazing how these are things that they've never seen before. Um, and it can be it can change minds. Now, as far as what you guys do, like going out into the public, I think that is completely necessary. I think we live in a
Mm.
culture that has been completely desensitized
Yeah.
um, to not only abortion, but like
Mhm.
everything. I mean, if you look at video games
Mhm.
out there, I mean, the realism of video games, I mean, you can like blow somebody's head off with a gun and it looks
Mhm.
real. And so I think we need to show people that what they're looking at, this is
Mhm.
real. This is
Mhm.
real life. This isn't fake. This isn't fake blood. This is very
Mhm.
real. These are real human beings that are being killed. And we need to almost resensitize people to the fact that these are real human beings. And so, I will say this, so Mark, and I know we want to talk about the criminalization of abortion and keeping abortion consistently is murder. And I do want to say this. So, when I came into the pro-life movement, I left Planned Parenthood and had done so many regrettable things, right? And had come out of this industry and had been welcomed into this movement, surprisingly, actually, had been, kind of welcomed into this movement by most people. And and so you're kind of when you are someone like me who's come out of the industry and is now suddenly kind of being welcomed into this movement, you're kind of told like this is what we believe here. This is this is what you believe now. Like and we welcome you into this movement, but this is how you believe. This is what we believe. Um we believe that, you do this and you say this and we believe these things. And so I think the victim imagery is a good example. We believe that we don't show this because it hurts women. um and we believe that we don't criminalize women for abortion, people that participate in abortion, because that hurts women. um and so you're kind of like told these are the things that you say, and these are the things that you don't say, and these are the things you believe, and these are the things that you don't believe. And I think in an attempt to do and say the right things, because I had done and said the wrong things for so long, you're just kind of like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I'll do and say those things, right? Because I want to be accepted because I've done all these terrible things
Mhm.
before. And it kind of, I guess, over the past like 2 to 3 years, I've kind of realized like, but maybe I don't believe those things that I've been told that I believe,
So you
right?
kind of adopted the
Maybe
mainstream position of the pro-life movement basically, right, early on? Kinda makes
right. And
sense.
so I kind of realized like I'm kind of being told like what to believe and what to say, in the same way that I was being told what to believe and say when I worked at Planned Parenthood.
Mhm.
And I kind of want to have like my own mind, right? Like I kind
Good for
of
you.
I I kind of want to just say and the things that I actually believe and the things that I believe are consistent.
Yeah.
And and I do kind of want to use these images out in front of clinics in the way that
Mhm.
I believe them to be most effective. And I do kind of believe that we need to
Mhm.
show these. images publicly in places. I do think we need to do that. And that's very contrary to the mainstream
It is.
pro-life movement.
It is.
And so I wanted to say that because because I realize there's gonna be people watching, they're like, "But I've heard her say this
Mhm.
for a long time," and you're right. Um, I have said these things that are kind of contradictory to what I'm saying right now, and I just kinda wanted to put that out there.
Well, we appreciate it. We've always believed in them, only because they work. I usually don't
Yeah,
follow the common whatever conventional wisdom there is. I just do what I think works, and we've seen it
yeah,
anecdotally. We have actually polling that's been done statistically. I think it shows that it can move the needle in public opinion. There are places
yeah,
and times maybe it's not most effective. We just got done with issue 1 here in Ohio, and we didn't use them all that often because we felt like we had to just move them at the people at the margins, and trying to convince
mhm,
everybody to be anti-abortion in 6 months was probably not it was too big of a task, so we didn't have the time necessarily. I would ask you this, though. I've always held to the position, the bigger signs, what have you, at a clinic. Uh, you know this. 9 out of 10 of the women, the parents are going to go inside without talking to a sidewalk counselor. My idea
yeah,
is we'll give them something to think about when they see the photo, whether it's a prenatal photo.
yeah,
We have both prenatal and abortion victim photos. For those who don't go inside, because the ones that come to the sidewalk, you get to have that personal interaction and you have the opportunity to actually show them the pictures. But for those who won't come to the sidewalk, that's where I think the signs might be helpful, and that's why we use them.
yeah,
What are your thoughts on that?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely an argument to be
Mhm.
made. Um, and I wish that there was I wish there was a way to kind of gather data on
Right.
that. I wish there was a way to like talk to women in the clinics. Um,
To see how they react, yeah.
and just to kind of
Sure.
see like how they react. I do think that, and I will say, Mark, like I haven't been in the clinic in 15 years. So our culture is
Mhm.
different than it was 15
Yep.
years ago. And so our culture is different and women are different. And I say that all the time. You know, we we didn't really have women when I worked at the clinic. We didn't really have women that were coming in to have abortions that were having abortions because they didn't want to get stretch marks on their body. You know, we didn't have women coming in that were getting abortions because they had plans on spring break and they wanted to drink and do drugs and a baby, was messing up that plan. But we hear that a lot actually now on our
Mhm.
hotline. Women have become so
Yeah.
calloused to their own unborn child in the womb in a way that I didn't experience that in the clinic when I worked there. And actually, and then there were
Yeah.
none. You know, we're seeing that change in the workers too. So like it used to be that workers contacted us for, one of two reasons primarily. It was because something had happened to a baby in the clinic, like a baby had been, born alive and killed, or, we had one worker where quadruplets had been aborted and that affected the whole staff or something like that. There had been an instance with a baby, or there had been an instance with a mom, right? Like a woman had almost died on the table, or a woman did die on the table, or something had happened, right? There was some kind of traumatic event with a woman or a baby. Now we're seeing a third group of women coming to us. And these are women who are so disgusted with the women coming in to have abortions.
Mm.
And they're like, I got in this thinking I was helping women. And now I'm seeing patients that have been here 12 times in the past 2 years. And they're like, this is not helping women.
Mhm.
This is not what I thought it was going to be. These are women that are so calloused about their babies. this is not about being pro-choice. This is about being pro-abortion. And we're also seeing women who are, there's a fourth category. We're also seeing women who are coming to us from the clinics that are coming because of this whole transgender thing. And they're like, I did not get into this to see 12 and 13-year-olds be put on hormone blockers, puberty blockers. So we're also seeing some trickle in from that. So I think that the environment is different. Our culture is different. And so I think there is a case to be made that maybe they do need to kind of be shocked out of this callousness that is in their hearts. And maybe the imagery
Yeah.
would do that.
Yeah, well, it does on campuses, I know that. My guest is Abby
For sure.
Johnson. You can go to the website, abbyj.com. You can find out all about her work with the ministry, and then we're none. Plus, she has a podcast called Politely Rude. I love the title, by the way. It's pretty good.
My husband always said, I'm Southern. So my husband always said, you have a way of being like politely rude. So when I said, I'm going to start the podcast, I was like, I don't know what to call it. He's like, that's what you
I
call
like
it.
it. I think it
Politely
fits. I
rude.
think it fits you. So what I want to do, and I know we've got limited time here, I want to talk about the documentary. Of course, a lot of people know you, Abby,
Yeah.
because of the movie Unplanned, which was powerful. In fact, by the way, the scene where the woman is having the abortion in the bathroom is probably the most powerful
Yeah.
scene, and we actually use that clip in some of our presentations. We've actually taken basically a still shot of that and put it on our signs for college campuses when it comes to pill abortions. But now you've got this new documentary that's going to be released, and you're asking people to have screenings. If you would, tell us about
Yeah.
it. It's called Unthinkable, friends, and you can go to unthinkabledoc.com, unthinkabledoc, DOC.com. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So we basically, we've got over 700 workers that have left the abortion industry and have come through our ministry. And we have a really robust healing program for them. And we were at one of our healing retreats, our annual healing retreats, and we were just kind of like sharing, it'd be cool to do a documentary to kind of talk about all of these really terrible things that have happened in the clinics. Because I think a lot of the pro-life movement doesn't really
Mm,
understand what's really happening in these
mm,
clinics, and like the worst of the worst things, right? And so we were kind of talking about it. Like one of our workers, one of our clients, our quitters as we
mm-hmm.
call them, she went to prison for almost 3 years working with Kermit Gosnell.
Wow.
And she went to prison for murder. And
And she's out?
and people, she's out now. Yeah, she went to prison for almost 3 years. And she turned state's evidence, and so she got a lesser
Oh, gotcha.
time.
Good for her.
Um, but yeah, and so, it was like, God, what if they knew? What if the American public knew what was really happening in these clinics? Like, would it change minds, right? Like, what if they knew just like the grotesque nature of what's happening in these clinics? Like,
Mhm.
what if they knew that, one of our clients, Claire, Kara, she talks about a woman getting cytotech and delivering a 20-week baby in the waiting room, like in front of all these other
Mm,
clients. And the workers have to rush in, with a blue chuck pad and pick up the baby and take it to the back and clean up the blood in the waiting room. And the clients are just in there like in shock, that this 20-week-old baby is just plopped on the floor, right? And so many other stories like that, babies being born alive, and the workers listening to this baby paddle in the toilet until it drowns. And there's so many stories like that, babies being born alive and then, their neck slit and all these things, and women dying, and then the doctors making these workers accomplices to murder.
mm.
And they get away with it. And so it was kind of like, what if we told these stories just to get it out there? I mean, it's almost like the victim imagery. Like, let's put
Right.
this in their minds, right? Like, let's put this in the minds of the American public let's give them some stories that would put images in their head to like really show people how terrible these clinics actually are. And so that's really what we did. We got about 3 dozen workers together and just told these stories and showed the emotional turmoil that these workers are still living with. And look, we're not victims, right? We chose to work there. Um but also showing that they chose to leave and that there is forgiveness and there is mercy, but we also have earthly consequences for what we have participated in. And, part of it is, you know, guilt.
My guest is Abby Johnson. You can go to abbyj.com. We're talking about this new documentary called Unthinkable, and you can go to unthinkabledoc.com. Abby, what can people do to set up a screening, and what's involved in that, by the way?
Yeah, so they just need to go online to the website and type in your information, and one of the producers will get a hold of you. And if you want to screen at your church, your pro life group, or whatever, they'll reach out, get you the link. And we want people to watch this film. Almost everybody that's watched it has said this is even more powerful than Unplanned, because this is
Hmm.
you're hearing it
Real people.
from the real life voices of people that have participated in this. And
Gotcha.
nobody's face is covered. Nobody's
Hmm.
names are covered up. I mean, you see their face, their first and last name is there, the clinic they worked at. So nobody's hiding anything. I mean, these are their real life stories just right out there for everybody to see. And I think there's something very powerful about that.
No doubt. Does it won't cost anything? I mean, they download it for free and they just ask people to come. Are you raising? I assume you're raising money for it too,
Yeah,
right?
there is a cost. I honestly, Mark, don't even know the cost. There is a
Okay.
cost attached to it, but if you're like a pro life leader, if you're a leader of a group or something, they'll send you the screener. Because we want people to watch it, we want people to talk about it. We're going to be
Right.
putting it out in theaters eventually, but we are still working on the plan for when that rollout is going to be.
Okay. And after theaters, it'd be available streaming,
Oh
I
yeah,
imagine,
we're
for
gonna
others
stream.
and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that.
it'll be on a streaming platform.
Okay, well, excellent. So, folks, you can go to Unthinkable Doc, that's DOC.com, to set up a screening of Abby's new documentary. Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed the interview with Abby Johnson and her story of leaving the abortion industry and how she witnessed that baby being killed, guided by ultrasound. What a powerful witness. And now she's turned around and is making the case for life all across America. So we really thank Abby for taking the time. And friends, you can find out more about her work by going to abbyj.com. That's abbyj.com. And also, you can donate to Created Equal and also support the Mark Harrington Show by going to createdequal.org/donate. That's createdequal.org/donate. We'll see you next time. God bless you. God bless America. And remember, America, to bless God.
You've been listening to Mark Harrington, your radio activist. For more information on how to make a difference for the cause of life, liberty, and justice, go to createdequal.org. To follow Mark, go to markharringtonshow.com. Be sure to tune in next time for your marching orders in the culture war.